Welcome back to Hey Kentucky. Time to get into some political discussion with Speaker Pro Tem David Meade from Stanford, from Lincoln County. Thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you for having me, Mary Jo.
We have a lot to talk about, and I kind of want to start with a bill that you are a sponsor of, which is House Bill 1.
Yes.
And I kind of want you to walk me through this, because this is something that has been sort of presented before, but there have been some tweaks and changes made to kind of maybe help it go along.
Well, I am a person that I am very compassionate. I love people, and so I want to do everything that I can to help. And so what we've done with this bill and what we're trying to do with this bill is offer a compassionate side to that. What can we do to provide the safety net for those folks who really need these programs, while also having some accountability in that? And so that's what we're working toward right now. One of the biggest pieces in that is a bridge plan for insurance. The biggest thing we hear when we talk to folks who receive public assistance is, if I make too much money or I take a new job, I'm going to lose those benefits of health care that are provided for my family. And I have children and I need to take care of them. And I think that's a situation that no one should have to be in. I think we would all make that same decision to make sure that we take care of our families before we made any more money. And that's what they're faced with. And so the biggest portion of this is a bridge plan of insurance when they get to that benefit cliff, that they continue on having that health care coverage and that safety net for their family. And we're going to continue doing that until they get to a point where they can sustain that on their own. So that's the biggest portion. What we hear a lot of as far as fraud is concerned is the selling of those cards for cash and then misusing that money. So we're putting all benefits on one card to try to curb that and stop those folks from doing that. We're going to try to limit the cash withdrawals that come out of ATMs and at stores and things like that. We know that some folks are going to need that for rent and for some shopping money and things like that. So we're just going to try to figure out a way to limit it and make sure that those things are being used properly.
And of course, drug testing was a part of this a couple years ago. That has since been removed. It's
been changed somewhat. Yes. 2 years ago in House Bill 1, which was child welfare, we had a clause in there that said if a child was born drug addicted, that the mother had 90 days to get into drug treatment, or we would start the termination of parental rights. So it's kind of a way to push people into recovery. And so we've kind of transitioned that over to this. It just says that if you are convicted of a drug crime, that once your incarceration period is over with, that you would have 90 days to enroll in drug treatment, and that's for those Medicaid recipients. So if you're on Medicaid, Medicaid is going to pay for those recovery treatments, and that's what we want to do. Is we want to push folks to recovery. We have such a bad opioid problem in our state that this is what we're trying to do to help to gain recovery for some of those folks.
Medical marijuana. Last week we talked on this show about a poll that was done where 90% of Kentuckians are in favor of that. That doesn't mean it's a partisan issue at all. That sounds to me like your constituents and every legislator's constituents pretty much would be in favor of this. Where does it stand?
Well, right now, Chairman Jason Petrie, who is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, has already said that he's going to hear that bill this week. We fully expect it to come out. Where I've stood on the issue for the previous years is if we're going to say it's medicinal marijuana, then let's make it medicine. Let's prescribe it by a doctor, dispense it by a pharmacist, make sure that it's pill and oil format only, no smoke, no flower, anything like that. And that's where Jason Nemes has got this bill. And I think what you're seeing is it's continuing to gain support as it goes through the process. So I think there's a likelihood that could potentially pass.
Also, if it is medicinal, why would we tax it?
You're exactly right. That's where I've stood on it. We tax no other medicines in this state. Why would we start now? I think it sets a dangerous precedence for us to go down if we started taxing the medicine now.
So where do you see additional forms of revenue coming from?
We've done a good job over the past in some tax reform, and we're going to have to continue that. I don't know that we'll see much this year. Of course, anything that we did this year would not affect this year's budget. You're going to have to prepare for the next budget cycle. I think you'll see probably the vaping tax will be passed. I know the governor had a 10-cent tobacco tax in his budget. Whether that stays in or not is still yet to be seen, but everything is still on the table, and we're going to continue to work on those things. If you look at our revenue growth over the past few years, it's pretty well kept pace. We've got a spending problem in our state, and most of that spending comes from our pension systems. That spike in the cost of pensions has just outpaced revenue here lately. And so you take our entire budget and look at it overall, we have a $22 billion budget, is what you continue to hear in the media. I think a lot of that talk is just to make it sound like we're misusing money. But when you break those things down, you'll see that that's not the case. Out of that $22 billion, we have federal programs we have to fund. We have federal pass-through money that comes through us. So when you get down to it, we have a general fund of about $11 billion. And out of that $11 billion, 45% of that goes to K through 12 education and pensions, 17% of that goes to Medicaid, and about another 7% goes to incarceration costs in our state. So we're running the entire rest of the government off of about 25 to 30% of that general fund. So in my opinion, what we have is a spending problem more than we do a revenue problem right now.
And so those three things that you just mentioned, where a bulk of the money is going, I mean, you have to fully fund the pension system, don't you?
In my opinion, we do.
And there probably needs to be some criminal justice reform in there.
There does, and Chairman Petrie and Representative McCoy are working on that right now. What we'll see out of that, I'm not sure, because when you get into that issue, you have 138 legislators, you have 138 different opinions on how to handle it. So that one's going to take a little time, but I think we will see something towards the end of session, maybe more on the bail reform side than we will on anything. But yes, we'll see some criminal justice reform.
David, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Mary
I
Jo.
really appreciate the update, and continue doing your good work with foster care and adoption.
Well, thank you,
I
and good luck
appreciate
to
that
you
much.
in that process as well.
Thank you so much. All right, more Hey Kentucky after this.